Hello, HMS Bobcats. Mr. Flato here. Welcome back to another great week. Hope it'll be a great week for each and every one of you at the Helena Middle School. On today's Bob lesson, really like this Bob lesson. This Bob lesson is about having awareness about your own habits and the life that you live. This Bob lesson is about being mindful of how you build and live your everyday life. So many times in life we have these little habits that are there that are maybe good habits. They can be good habits that we have on a day-to-day basis that keep us aligned with our goals and our vision and our passions and where we want to be. Or, as I'm going to point out today, we can have these little habits that maybe slowly start to eat away at the goals and visions and where we want to be in life. And life is about the day-to-day routine and the habits that you have. And specifically, if we have a bunch of little habits that are maybe negative or destructive or aren't super healthy, how those slowly start to build up on us, sometimes without us consciously even realizing it. And then one day we find ourselves in a bad situation. Where does this come into play with? It comes into play with maybe missing too much school. It comes into play with maybe not turning in all of our schoolwork. It comes into play with maybe developing poor habits outside of school. It comes into play with sometimes how we rationalize things. Well, it's just this one time, or it's just this one day, or whatever, or it's just once a week, or it's just once a day, or it's just twice a day, or it's just twice a week, so on and so forth. The example in this lesson is when they slowly increase the temperature on a frog that's in some water, and what happens and how the change is so slow and so subtle that the frog doesn't realize what's really going on. And so metaphor, love this Bob lesson for eighth graders, because as we move into the spring of eighth grade and onto high school, the daily habits of how we live really start to add up, and they're so crucially important. Hope you guys enjoy this lesson. Hope you get something out of it. Oh, and one final note for you animal lovers, because I'm one of them. No frogs were hurt in this next video. I wanted to put that out there ahead of time. No frogs were hurt.
Frog is a cold-blooded animal, and humans are warm-blooded, so our body burns energy or perspires to maintain the same 98.6 degrees. The cold-blooded frog's body temperature goes up and down with the temperature of its surroundings. Although frogs love water, when I hold it over this pot of boiling water, this frog is very uncomfortable and climbs to get away from it. Now, the water in this pot is room temperature, 69.4 degrees, so he's comfortable when I put him in. If I turn the burner on low flame, his body temperature will adjust and slowly he will heat up with the water. The water temperature has risen to 80 degrees and the frog is the same temperature and still comfortable. If I turn up the burner slowly again, he won't notice because he'll continue to change to be the same as his surroundings. When we started, I held the frog over the first pot of boiling water. He was uncomfortable and he tried to get away from the heat. But now, because we're raising the temperature slowly, he doesn't recognize the danger he's in. He just keeps going along with the changes in his surroundings. Eventually, we can turn up the burner to a deadly boil. He will just keep trying to adjust with it. By the time he realizes it's killing him, it's too late. He won't notice in time because he just keeps changing himself to go along with the changes in his surroundings.
All right, this Bob lesson is going to be titled, Are You a Boiling Frog? But first, let's be our best this week at HMS. Let's be Bob. Let's be safe. Let's be responsible. Let's be respectful. Let's be a learner. All right, on today's Bob lesson, going to talk about habits and how important habits are in our everyday life. We habitually become
what we do. All right, on today's Bob lesson, I'm going to talk about habits and going to compare how middle school students and human beings in general become a frog in boiling water. This is a metaphor that I'm going to use, and what I'm really trying to hit on today is we do things, we make decisions every day, and we rationalize why it's okay, but over time it slowly starts to build. So today's first example is you could be a boiling frog if you consistently miss a day, a week, or more of school and rationalize it by saying something like, it's just one day of school, I can make it up tomorrow. One day of school we miss, okay, probably not a huge deal, but when it consistently becomes 1 day, 2 days the following week, 1 day the following week, and then 3 days the following week, and we add all those days up of learning we are missing, becomes very, very substantial. When you get to high school next year, there is a cap on how many days you can miss. And if you miss so many days more than that, you simply do not get credit. So we got to get in the habit now. I know it's just 1 day and we tell ourselves it's just 1 day. And then that becomes our new norm and that becomes a new habit that we have. Next slide, you could be a boiling frog if you consistently don't do all of your schoolwork. And you may rationalize this as, I do most of my work. I understand the concepts. I don't actually have to go through the steps of doing it. Well, there's a reason that your teachers have you go through those steps and do that work to try it on, see where we get, see what we don't get, make corrections, make adjustments. Teachers need to know what you're understanding and what you're not doing. But so much of life is being industrious. That means having a work ethic, accomplishing something, achieving something. So if you consistently don't achieve all of your workload, you're gradually going to fail. When you get a job someday, you don't get to pick and choose and do 70% of your job. If you only do 70% of your job, you're going to be looking for a new job because you're going to get fired someday. All of the missing work that we do, it gradually adds up and it can sink us down. All right, the last slide is you could be a boiling frog if you consistently aren't getting enough sleep, exercise, eating healthy food, getting self-care, all of those lifestyle things. And you may rationalize it as, I can stay up late tonight and I'll catch up on my sleep another time. Well, you stay up late tonight and then you're dragging the next day and you're not performing as best as you could. Or you could take a day off from an exercise routine if hopefully you are on one. Exercise routine, if I take more than 2 days off, I can definitely feel myself not feeling my best mentally, physically, emotionally. Or maybe you have cheat days in your diet and you eat lots of junk food. When you get to be my age or a little bit older, right now you guys can get away with not exercising, get away with having cheat days and eating junk food, and it doesn't really catch up to you. When you get to be my age, you have a couple of those days and you just start feeling different. You start feeling not your best. Or maybe you get away from your self-care and you work yourself too hard and you don't take time every day, every week to do something that is taking care of yourself. So you could be a boiling frog and slowly changing and not really realizing it if we get off of our sleep, our exercise, eating healthy, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our minds and our souls. That brings us to this week's quote of the week, which comes from Aristotle, which is, we are what we repeatedly do. That's the habits that I'm talking about. Success is not an action, but a habit. It's how we live our life every single day. It's the decisions that we consistently make. It's being in a routine. I was a little short on time on today's Bob lesson, and I could have came up with a lot more ideas of middle school students and the habits we make, where we're not making great habits and we're slowly boiling, and we don't really realize it. You guys, I encourage you to think about what are some of the habits you do that maybe aren't good habits, that maybe are starting to accumulate, and then one day you look in the mirror and you realize, wow, this isn't who I wanted to be or how I wanted to be or in the situation I wanted to be. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
All right, that brings us to this week's Jelly Bean Question of the Week winners. We got Kellen Smith, Sean McClellan, Justin Trainer, Jack Peterson, Ashton Jellison, and the answer to last week's Jelly Bean Question Week was the post office. What has like thousands of letters, but is 2 words or 1 word, I think was the question, something along that line. All right, this week's Jelly Bean Question of the Week. What goes up and down but stays in place? If you think you know the answer to this, I think we should have a lot of answers on this one because I'm thinking of 2 examples. Submit your answer to the Bomb Box. Tune in after spring break to see if you're a winner. All right, Bobcats, let's make it a great week at the Helena Middle School.